'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house some bad guys came a-knocking, much to the family's louse. Little did they know Santa was there too, to put a hurt on them with some season's beatings galore. So much to my excitement, this was one fun ride. Strap in, folks, for a violent night. What's up, everybody, and welcome to my review of Violent Night. Thank you so much, guys, for clicking here. I really do appreciate it. Happy December, everyone. I got my Griswold family shirt on. I got my Santa hat for the occasion. Not saying I'm going to dress like this every video I make this month, but given what I'm reviewing, why not? Thought it'd be natural. So let's do this. The film follows a rich family on Christmas Eve who is held hostage by a group of mercenaries, and Santa just happens to be there, which forces him to take action by kicking ass and taking names. As much of you already guessed, I'm an action junkie, so this was something that I was anticipating, that I was so looking forward to, something that I was very excited to see. I mean, the thought of Santa kicking ass and taking names, and just pretty much going John McClane on everybody. Come on. Just, that's a no-brainer. Sign me up. With Christmas actually just around the corner, it made sense. And it's about time that another Christmas-themed movie comes out, much less an action-themed one. And I swear, the only action-themed Christmas movies I know of are back in the freaking 80s with Die Hard and Lethal Weapon. I am not kidding. Maybe I'm way too late in the game. Maybe there's more out there. But not that I've seen. We have a Silent Night, Deadly Night movie, which is a horror take, but not much action. We need more of these. Just, come on, Hollywood. Like I said, the only ones I know of that are action-themed Christmas movies are Die Hard and Lethal Weapon. We need more. We need more. Let's start a petition. We need more. Was this the Yuletide joy I needed for this Christmas season? Or was this a lump of coal? Let's find out and start with the positives as usual for Violent Night. This movie was such a perfect blend of Die Hard, Bad Santa, and Home Alone. It's actually marketed as Die Hard meets Home Alone. The way the movie starts, I saw a lot of Bad Santa in it as well. Because you have this Santa Claus, played by David Harbour, which is excellent, who's this kind of drunk. It starts in this pub in London, I believe, to where he's just drinking his liver away, what Billy Bob Thornton did in Bad Santa. So that's what made me think of Bad Santa right away. And then as the movie progresses, it just turns into this, Die Hard / Home Alone action-themed Christmas movie that I was on board for. It had that perfect mixture of all three of those movies wrapped into one giant Christmas cookie, which made it such a blast that you just couldn't help but love it. Now, I know film is subjective. I know that's kind of generic to say now, but it's not going to be for everybody, but it sure as hell was for me. And you got David Harbour as Santa Claus himself. He pretty much stole the show. Like I said, he showed the perfect blend of Bad Santa and John McClane from Die Hard. It worked for what this movie was telling. He brought such a unique take to the character of Santa Claus. He didn't play the usual generic holly jolly, bowl full of jelly type, Santa Claus. This was so much different because the way David Harbour poured his heart and soul into this character. He plays this drunk, and then he plays like a John McClane action star, which, if this does well, this could very well be a franchise within itself. Like with Bruce Willis and John McClane and Die Hard, I can actually see this Santa being a possible future action icon like Riggs and Murtaugh from Lethal Weapon, John McClane from Die Hard. I see great potential in this. If this does well, I can see a future icon in this character, in this rendition of Santa Claus. No lie. So support it. Make it happen, folks. I can see him turning it into this action star within itself. Like a whole new franchise of Christmas-themed action films. And I think that's what we need. Like I said, with David Harbour in this film, he turns into basically a Bruce Willis, John McClane Santa Claus that just kicks ass and takes names and kills a bunch of bad guys. You have this little girl who actually claims to have seen one too many action movies, and that's what her actions are based on as well in this when it gets to Home Alone stuff. It's pretty clever. It's pretty clever all around. David Harbour, he pretty much stole the show. He was the heart and soul of the film as the title character, as the protagonist. He was an awesome, I guess you could call, anti-hero, because he wasn't your basic everyday hero. He was Santa Claus doing a job that just was in the wrong place, wrong time. And he was great. He was awesome. Plus, speaking of the little girl played by Lee Brady, Home Alone stuff comes in. There's this whole attic scene to where they actually tried to duplicate some of what Macaulay Culkin did in that film that this little girl was doing to these bad guys. And I thought that was pretty clever. I can see like the downsides as to what some people might say about it, but I thought it was pretty clever, and that's what kept the comedy going. You know, they tried to keep it as festive as possible with this being a Christmas movie, that they just went for it. And I felt like that was the right choice. Lee Brady, she was like the moral compass of this film. The whole entire reason why Santa did what he did in this film. She was basically the whole reason why Santa does what he does in this. You have these group of bad guys, these bad mercenaries that holds this family hostage. And then he just so happens to walk by the window and she's just so scared. And then that just gets him to thinking, well, okay, well, I might as well help. She's on my nice list. So y'all are going down. But like I said, this little girl is like the moral compass, like the guidance to this character of Santa. He has this whole attitude, like the bad Santa attitude. But once he starts talking with this little girl, his whole attitude changes. And he's like, you know, I must kill these bad guys, save this little girl and this family from danger. And she's just the reason why Santa does what he does, and he stays. All this different stuff happens at the beginning that forces him to stay. But then he sees a window of opportunity until he sees what's happening. And then he goes batshit crazy. And the chemistry between this little girl and Santa was priceless. You get this whole dialogue where you actually start to get to care a lot, especially about these two. And that she's the only one that's talking to him through this walkie-talkie. And she's like, you know, I've got a plan. They try to work together in a way. And it was pretty cool. It gave the movie that warm, soft feeling that your basic Christmas movie usually does. Although this is a hard R-rated action flick, you do see a lot, they held nothing back. It still has this family theme that you would see in a everyday Christmas family film, especially with the music and the score. And that's what really like gives it that feeling, while at the same time you know you're watching a hard R, Die Hard type Christmas movie. But the chemistry between this little girl and Santa, it worked very well, especially for the plot of the film. As generic as it seems, which I'll get to later, it really did work for the plot. Like I said, Lee Brady was like the moral compass of the entire film and the whole reason why Santa was doing what he's doing and why he's doing the right thing. Just the all-out dialogue and chemistry between the two, between Santa and this little girl, just worked. It just worked all around. It just 100%. Plus you have this whole dialogue at the beginning before everything goes down to where Santa is like, you know, all kids do is take and want and want. And it's just, it never changes. And Christmas is just a commercial-based holiday season and this and that. And it's like, in a way, this little girl kind of opens his eyes on that like not every kid is like that. And I thought that was pretty clever. I thought that was pretty good for the film. A pretty good plot device. And you get some crazy-ass action. As I said before, this movie holds nothing back. You have Santa Claus himself that kicks all these bad guys' ass. There's plenty of gore. There's plenty of kills. There's a hammer scene in a barn that just goes all out batshit crazy. And That right there, that scene alone was just nuts. Where he just bashes all these guys' heads in with this hammer. And that just made it so worthwhile. I mean, on top of everything else that happens in this movie, that made it all worthwhile. I mean, you put the word violent in your movie's title, it better deliver, and this did. As I said before, this film is marketed as a die-hard movie. So you do get a lot of die-hard moments. You do get a lot of smart, witty dialogue. And you get a lot of straight-up action scenes and this guy just plummeting and just beating all these guys up. It really felt like you were watching one of those old-school action flicks that we never get anymore. It's not one of those basic IPs like Marvel or DC, which is all we get anymore. And don't get me wrong, Marvel and DC is good, but it's nice to go back to that old school type fashion action that we used to get in like the late 80s and 90s. It's good to have that every now and then. We don't have much of that. You get some great fight sequences. They just hold nothing back, especially the hammer scene in the barn. That is very satisfactory. And with the dialogue, you get some pretty good, comedy sequences. You get some pretty smart humor. You get some pretty funny moments, like especially between Santa and the little girl, where Santa is like, oh, I'm going to beat these guys. And then the little girl finishes the sentence. And then and Santa is like, let's just keep it a little nicer than that. I'm trying to keep you on my nice list. And then the girl's like, well, how about butthole? And then Santa's like, yeah, that's a little close. Okay, how about anus? Yeah, that's better, I guess. There was just witty dialogue like that just made this movie so humorous. But it didn't feel like it caked it on. It didn't feel like it was forced. You still had time to breathe. But it didn't feel forced. It didn't feel caked on. And it just felt smoothly, especially with the humor and the comedy. This was definitely an action/comedy film. And it really got to balance it out. Like I said, it didn't feel forced. It didn't feel over the top. It was there to be entertaining, and that it was. You definitely get some almost Kevin Williamson type dialogue to where it's so meta that you would think you were watching a Kevin Williamson written type film. Because they go deep into the mythology of Die Hard and Lethal Weapon and Bad Santa, well, mostly Die Hard and Home Alone, but Bad Santa as well. And it's one of those that it's almost to the point to where it's a parody within itself. It's so self-aware that it really entices you in a way to where it really knew what it was, which really puts that extra spike in the eggnog that I've so much very needed for this season. And you get a pretty convincing villain, especially in John Leguizamo. He was pretty cool. He was pretty convincing as the head villain. And they keep it very festive in this movie. Going along with the theme of this movie, of the whole Christmas holiday season, most of the villains was named after Christmassy names. Like the head villain, John Leguizamo, was Scrooge. And then you get a character that was Gingerbread, and then another called Candy Cane, and another called Sugar Plum, which I thought that was pretty clever, which kept it up with the theme of this film, of this Christmas movie. And it definitely held that end of the bargain. But back to the villain, he was pretty cool. Like, all the villains in this was pretty cool, and they're just somebody you just love to hate. And with a motivation that seems very generic, which I'll get into here in a minute, but still, the villains, John Leguizamo, he was definitely good. He was definitely evil in his own way. He definitely pulled that part off pretty well. The look and feel of this was really good. Again, you get that Christmassy feel with the snow, and since this whole movie took place over Christmas Eve, especially Christmas Eve night, you get that whole Christmassy feel. And people dressing up in like hats and stuff like that. The whole festivity of the season, you definitely get that here, and it was pretty cool to look at. Snow, bells, decorations, you name it. It definitely had that festivity of the season. As kick-ass as this movie was, and believe me, I had a definite good time. This was one of my favorite Christmas movies so far, but it's not without its problems. The things that did not work for me, starting with the mixed, which is kind of minimal, is the story. What did work as part of the story was the whole Santa kicking ass and taking names John McClane style. This whole wrong place, wrong time, to where Santa himself is just caught into the middle of this war, I guess you could say, between this family and these mercenaries. And it's just this dangerous situation that he just gets caught up in. And then he starts going John McClane on everybody. I really love that aspect. And just the all-out way David Harbour handled this character. But what did not work for me is that it seemed like the most generic story ever. And it's just something that I felt like we've seen so many times before, because the whole entire motivation for these villains is that they want to steal millions of dollars. That's why they're holding these people hostage, and they want to get what they want and get out. It just felt like it's just something that's been dragged into the mud so many times, and it just felt so generic to the point to where, yeah, I've seen this before. It didn't really add anything to it. But other than that, the whole Santa aspect of him going all John McClane at it, that's the reason why this is in the mix. It just felt like, especially with the motivation of the story and the plot with the villains, it just felt like something that we've seen so many times before, and it didn't bring anything new. But again, it's nice to go back to that old school action type that we used to get in the late 80s, early 90s on through. That's what this movie felt like. Plus the whole family dynamic. Yes, you do get some scummy people on the family side. You know, it's not just the mercenaries that they want you to hate. It's certain family members, because they come off as these snobby, I think I'm perfect type of people. But later on during the movie, it kind of makes up for it, because there's certain things that happens to where you kind of forgive some of them, in a way. Because it goes all back to that family aspect of this film, where they try to make you hate them, but by the end, it's like, okay, you're forgiven. Like I said, certain things happens to where they just do a 180 on you, and it's like, at first you hate these people because of how snobby they are, but for the humorous side of things, it really works. So by the end of the film, they kind of show redemption in a way. And the negative I have, and this is kind of on me, because I've seen so much action films in the past throughout my life, I've become sort of desensitized. But there are certain things that happened in this to where I seen it coming. There were certain shots to where, oh, okay, that's a foreshadow. Oh yeah, how did I know that guy was going to fall on that icicle? Oh yeah, how did I know he was going to get a nail to the forehead? It's just certain things that I seen coming a mile away. It was still satisfactory, but it just took that, all that surprise out, because, it's my fault. I just become too desensitized to action movies of this level, to where certain things I just foreshadow, I just foresee. For whatever reason, I just seen a lot of the things coming a mile away, which sort of took some of the excitement out. And plus, there's this whole thing to where the family of the little girl, where you have the mother and the dad, and when the bad guys, they ended up torturing the dad, it just seemed like nobody gave a crap. And like, especially the mother of the little girl. And this dad seemed like the most sanest person there, the most normalest person there, but the only person aside from the little girl and the mother that didn't seem snobby, that didn't seem rude or think that they were better than anybody else. Yet whenever the bad guys was torturing him, the mother was just like, okay, whatever, torture him, I don't care, he's my ex. Come on. There's just certain things about that just kind of bugged me. It's like, give a shit, just a little. I mean, like I said, the dad was just so different from the rest of the family, and he's the one guy that you should really, care about. And I just didn't really feel like there was enough of that there, especially for the most normalist dude in this film. I had such a major blast. Despite my mixed and negatives, I'm still going to put it on a pedestal. So Violent Night, what was your thoughts on it? You probably hadn't seen it yet because it just came out, but for those of you who have, what was your thoughts on it? Were you a fan? Was this your favorite Christmas movie? Did you enjoy watching Santa go all John McClane on these people? Did you enjoy the sort of old school aspect of the action films that we used to get that was put in this movie, because that's all I seen. That's all I seen in this movie. It just had that old school action film feel to it. Did you enjoy that, or was this not for you? Was this another lump of coal for you this season? Leave me a comment down below and give me your thoughts. Thank you so much once again for watching this. I really do appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment, and share, the big 4. Make sure to click that bell icon so you don't miss a thing. And I will see you on the next one. Peace.